After 12 years in the Navanine of those on SEAL teams, I was ready to trade adrenaline for diapers, late-night bottle feeds, and quiet walks around the cul-de-sac. Emily and I had just moved into a picture-perfect neighborhood on the edge of town. You know the type: white fences, wide sidewalks, kids on scooters, and houses so identical they looked like someone copy-pasted them off a brochure. We'd picked this place for Lily, our newborn daughter, barely 2 months old, and already a pro at waking us up at ungodly hours. We wanted somewhere safe, calm, normal. We were wrong. Enter Karen. You probably know the type without needing much description. Short blonde bob so sharp, it looked like a weapon. Yoga pants that had never seen a lunge, and an expression permanently set to "I smell something offensive." She introduced herself on day one, clipboard in hand, smile surgically applied to her face. "Hi there, I'm Karen Whitmore, president of the HOA." Of course she was. She shook my hand like it was covered in something unpleasant and glanced over my shoulder at Emily holding Lily. Her eyes narrowed subtly, but not subtly enough. "We just wanted to remind you no large moving trucks past 7 p.m. It's a noise concern," she added, eyeing the U-Haul still being unloaded. It was 6:42. I smiled. "We'll be done in 20 minutes. Karen's smile tightened. "Good. We like to keep things orderly here." And just like that, the tone was set. Over the next week, Karen's presence became persistent. She'd show up during the day, while I was at the gym or running errands. Always, when Emily was alone, she'd check in on how things were going, but never left without a complaint wrapped in a compliment. "Oh, what a darling baby." Though, I will say, newborns can be a bit disruptive to the neighborhood peace. We had one on Cypress Lane last year, and it was quite the ordeal. Emily, ever the sweetheart, tried to play nice. She baked cookies, smiled, even invited Karen in once. Big mistake. Karen used that 5-minute visit to casually inspect our furniture arrangement, our curtain color, and whether our doormat was HOA compliant. Spoiler, it wasn't, apparently. Wipe your paws is offensive to someone. Then came the stroller incident. Emily had wheeled Lily down to the corner park and left the stroller on the porch when she got back, folded, neatly placed next to the door. That same evening we found a yellow note stuck to the screen. "Dear residents, please refrain from leaving unsightly items on porches. This includes strollers, toys, bicycles, and similar clutter. Thank you for maintaining the integrity of our community. HOA President, Unsightly." That's what she called the stroller we bought for $800. I started documenting everything after that. Nothing official, just a running log in my notes app titled Karen's Greatest Hits. It was mostly for laughs at first, a way to vent, but I had a gut feeling. Years of military operations do that to you. You learn to trust your gut when something's off. It didn't take long for Karen to shift from irritating to weird. One afternoon, Emily called me while I was at the grocery store, Jack. I think she was in the backyard. "What do you mean?" I asked, already pushing the cart toward the exit. I saw her through the window. She was just, walking along the fence line, like she was inspecting something. Then she looked right at the window and waved. I paused in the parking lot. "Did you call the cops?" I didn't want to escalate it. I wasn't even sure until she turned around. I didn't say anything right away. My jaw was tight, my instincts screaming. That night, I installed security cameras positioned at each corner of the house, motion-triggered, high-res, the whole 9 yards. Karen didn't know it yet, but she was on candid camera now. The next morning, we found another note on the door. "Please ensure infant noise is kept to a minimum during quiet hours, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Excessive crying can be reported as a nuisance." I nearly laughed out loud. Excessive crying. She was acting like Lily was throwing wild raves at 2 a.m. instead of being a baby. Emily wasn't laughing though. Her hands shook when she showed me the note. "She wants us gone," she whispered. "She wants to scare us off." I wrapped my arm around her. Let her try. 2 days later, the bomb dropped. It was a Saturday. I was out grabbing coffee and diapers when Emily called again. Her voice was frantic. "She's here, Jack. She's at the door. She's demanding I give her Lily." My heart stopped. "What? Is the door locked? Are you safe?" "I locked it." "She's on the porch yelling something about a community health inspection and how Lily has to be verified." I burned rubber, getting home. Pulled into the driveway like I was storming a compound. Karen was still there, arms folded, lips tight. A clipboard clutched like it was a federal badge. I didn't even shut the car door before I approached. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Karen blinked, caught off guard. "Mr. Carter, I'm here on behalf of the HOA's Child Wellness and Safety Committee. We've received concerns about noise and possible neglect." "From who?" "Well, I can't disclose that." "Because it's you," I said flatly. She sputtered. "Regardless, we have authority." "No, you don't," I cut in. "You're not a health official. You don't work for CPS. You're a nosy neighbor with a power complex and a clipboard. Get off my porch. I'll be filing a report." She snapped. "Do that," I said, "but know this: if you ever step foot on my property again, I will have you arrested for trespassing, and I'll make sure it sticks." Karen's eyes flared. She turned on her heel and marched away like she'd just delivered justice, muttering something about community standards. I held Emily for a long time that night. Lily slept peacefully, unaware her first neighborhood war had already begun. But Karen had no idea who she was messing with. She thought I was just some quiet suburban dad with a baby carrier and a grill. She didn't know I'd spent most of my adult life kicking in doors and dismantling threats in places where you don't call 911 because there is no one coming. She didn't know I'd been trained to detect lies in a heartbeat, that I could take apart and rebuild my life in a moment, if I had to, that I didn't like conflict, but I knew how to win one. This wasn't just about a stroller or a crying baby anymore. Karen had stepped over a line, and I was already planning my next move. Emily stopped answering the door. That's where we were at. After Karen's little stunt on the porch, the clipboard. The demand for our baby like this was some twisted version of The Handmaid's Tale. My wife didn't even want to open the blinds, and honestly, I didn't blame her. Karen, of course, didn't take the hint. Instead, she upped her game. I caught the first incident on camera. It was 2:07 in the afternoon, broad daylight. Karen walked right up to our house, paused like she was tying her shoe, then casually glanced into our living room window. She wasn't subtle. She leaned in, peered through the glass like we were animals at the zoo. She even cupped her hands around her eyes for a better look. We weren't home at the time. I was running a few errands. Emily had taken Lily for a short drive to calm her down. You know how babies love the car. But when I got the motion alert on my phone and pulled up the footage, my stomach did a slow, hard turn. I showed it to Emily that night. Her face went pale, then red. She was looking for Lily, she whispered. She was looking for our baby. We sat in silence for a second, both staring at the frozen frame of Karen's face, smashed against our glass like a budget horror villain. "I want to move," Emily said quietly. That hit me harder than I expected. We'd picked this place for a reason. Good schools, quiet streets, close enough to the city, far enough to breathe. It was supposed to be home. I didn't want to run just because one power-hungry control freak thought she ran the neighborhood like a cult compound. "No," I said, "we're not moving." "She is." The next day, I installed 2 more cameras, one in the backyard, pointed at the fence line, another hidden in a fake birdhouse on the porch. Karen didn't know it yet, but she was starring in her own personal reality show now. Working title: Karen versus Common Sense. That's when things started getting weird. Not just nosy neighbor, weird. creepy, potentially legal weird. Emily was folding laundry in the nursery when she noticed a glint of something out the window. She pulled back the curtain and saw Karen standing in our backyard, hands on her hips, just staring at the house. Emily screamed. Karen didn't flinch. By the time I got home, she was gone, but the camera caught it, every second of it. She'd come through the side gate locked, by the way, or used to be. She must have popped it somehow. She stood there for over a minute, motionless, like she was taking mental inventory of our house's soul. I sent the footage to a lawyer buddy from my SEAL days. He texted back one word: restrain her. But it wasn't just the trespassing. It was what she said when I confronted her. I caught her watering her lawn 2 days later. I walked right up to her with my phone in hand. You set foot on my property again. I press charges, I said. Karen didn't even look surprised. She gave me that fake smile like she was being filmed on a cooking show. I was concerned. A baby crying that much. It's distressing for the whole community. She's an infant, I said flatly. Well, some neighbors mentioned it might be neglect, or worse. I just thought someone should take a look. I stared at her. Did you just accuse my wife of child abuse? Oh no, she said, backing off with all the grace of a politician caught on a hot mic. I'm just saying, it's better to be cautious. You'd be shocked how many people call CPS these days. There it was, the threat. She didn't say she'd call them, but she didn't have to. It hung in the air like a loaded gun on the table. I walked away without another word, because if I stayed, I would have said something I'd regret or worse, done something. That night, I went digging. It turns out Karen Whitmore had a little reputation. 3 lawsuits over the past decade, all quietly settled, 2 involving harassment within her former HOA. 1 filed by a former neighbor who'd accused her of filing false reports with child services after a parking dispute. That one hit a nerve. I couldn't find out the outcomes, but it didn't matter. The pattern was clear. Karen weaponized systems. She didn't just abuse her power, she manufactured it. Bent rules into weapons. Wore bureaucracy like armor. She knew exactly how far she could push before it got legally messy. And she thought she'd found easy targets in Ustu, new parents, too tired to fight back. She had no idea. The next day, Emily found a note in our mailbox. Not postmarked, just folded and slipped inside. There will be a mandatory HOA safety review next Friday. All infants and children in the community must be registered and reviewed by the Board for Health and Safety Compliance. Non-compliance will result in fines. I swear, if there was a way to punch paper, I would have done it right then and there. Registered. Reviewed. What were we? Pets. I showed the letter to our neighbor, Chris, retired cop. Solid guy. He read it, scoffed, and said, "That's not legal. None of this is legal." Apparently, several people on the block had been getting Karen's special brand of community oversight. She'll find one woman for leaving her dog's leash on the porch. Told a family their mailbox paint was too bold. Tried to force a single dad into attending a parenting class hosted by her. But no one had ever pushed back. They either moved or ignored her until she got bored and moved on. I wasn't going to be one of those people. So the first drafted a formal complaint. I pulled security footage. I printed the letter. I even had Emily write down everything she could remember from Karen's porch meltdown. Then I mailed it all certified to the HOA board, the city attorney, and the local CPS office. The message was simple. If Karen made one more move against us, we'd respond with everything we had. Legally, publicly, loudly. The day after the letters went out, Karen didn't come outside. Not to water her lawn. Not to check mail. Not to stare through our windows like a budget Dracula. It was eerily quiet, like the eye of a hurricane. Emily let out a breath she'd been holding for weeks. But I didn't relax. Not yet. Because here's the thing about people like Karen. They don't just give up. They regroup. They scheme. They wait for the next opening. And I had a bad feeling our next chapter wasn't far behind. Because when you back a narcissist into a corner, they don't retreat. They come out swinging. It was a Wednesday, mid-morning, bright blue sky kind of day. The kind that dares you to believe nothing bad can happen while the sun is shining. Birds chirping, lawn sprinklers ticking rhythmically down the block like the soundtrack to a Stepford neighborhood commercial. But chaos doesn't need the dark. Sometimes, it shows up at your front door in broad daylight, wearing khakis and a smug smile. Emily was home alone with Lily. I was 10 minutes away at the pharmacy. Picking up baby wipes and gripe Waterbeak. Parenting a newborn is basically surviving on 3 things: caffeine, panic, and Amazon's subscribe and save button. My phone was in my pocket, set to vibrate, and when it buzzed 3 times in a row, I knew it wasn't spam. Emily I picked up, and all I heard was panic. "She's here, Jack. She's back. She's yelling. She's banging on the door. She says she's here to inspect Lily. She's demanding I hand her over." My whole body snapped into seal mode. Calm heart. Fast feet. "Are you both inside? Is the door locked?" Yes. She tried to open it. I saw her twist the handle. "Don't go near it. Just stay with Lily. I'm on my way." I was out of the parking lot before she hung up. Red lights became suggestions. I wasn't driving anymore. I was operating. Adrenaline made the world sharper, tighter, like everything outside the windshield was suddenly in 4K. And all I could think was, she tried to open the door. She tried to get in. I got home in 7 minutes flat. Parked halfway up the curb like I meant to destroy the lawn. Karen was still there. Clipboard in one hand, phone in the other. She wasn't knocking anymore. She was shouting, "I'm authorized to inspect under Section 7A. You're in violation of the neighborhood health protocols." Neighborhood health protocols? That was a new one. Creative. I'll give her that. I didn't say a word as I approached. Just walked right up, slow and steady. She turned, saw me, and her posture shifted. You know the way someone looks when they realize they've been caught mid-lie, but are too stubborn to admit it. That was her face. "Oh, Mr. Carter. Good, you're here. I've been trying to reason with your wife. You need to leave. Now." Her smile flickered. "I'm simply conducting a routine check." Several neighbors filed complaints about a distressed infant. No one filed anything. I cut in. "And even if they did, you have no authority to be here. You're not from CP. You're not a doctor. You're not even a real official. You're just a neighbor who's way too invested in other people's children." Karen blinked, then turned toward the door again. She refused to cooperate. "That's a serious offense. I've already documented it." I stepped between her and the door. "Step off my porch." Karen's voice went higher. "You're threatening me now. Is that what this is? I'm asking you to leave my property. I'm not threatening anything. But if you don't walk away in the next 5 seconds, I'm calling the cops. And this time, I'll press charges for attempted entry." That was when our neighbor, Mrs. Alston, popped out from across the street, holding her phone up like she was live streaming the moment. Karen flinched when she saw the camera. "Good?" She muttered something about just doing her duty and stormed down the steps, practically stomping her way back to her house like a toddler denied candy. I didn't relax until I heard the click of her front door. Inside, Emily was holding Lily. Both were crying. I sat down next to them and pulled them into my arms. "She tried to get in, Jack. She really thought she could just take her." "I know," I said, "but she didn't. And she never will." An hour later, a letter was slipped under our door. No envelope, no signature. Just typed, double-spaced, and stamped with that cheap HOA watermark that looked like someone printed it at a library. Effective immediately. Failure to comply with community health oversight will result in daily fines of $250, beginning Friday. The Child Wellness Initiative is supported by Article 14 of the HOA Charter. Ignoring board mandates may result in legal escalation. It was printed on pink paper, hot pink, because apparently, Karen thought weaponized paper should also be fabulous. I scanned the letter and sent it to our lawyer. Then I added it to my Karen folder, now 37 files deep, neatly labeled and dated. I had videos, emails, screenshots, even a voice memo of Karen accusing Emily of being emotionally unstable. But this crossed a line so wide, it should have come with flashing lights. She showed up and tried to enter our home, tried to take our daughter, and now she was threatening us with fines for not letting her do it. That wasn't just creepy, it was criminal. At the very least, deranged. So I did what I do best. I went on a fence. I started by filing a police report. Trespassing, harassment, attempted forced entry. I submitted every second of footage, every note, every neighbor statement I could get my hands on. Then I sent a formal complaint to the HOA board, copies to all 5 members, including the treasurer, who I found out hated Karen's guts after she tried to fine her over a political yard sign last fall. And just for good measure, I reached out to a local parenting blog. You'd be surprised how fast a story spreads when you tell it to a suburban mom who runs a group called Moms Against HOA Madness. By Friday, Karen was still walking her little power parade around the block, but the glint in her eye had dimmed. The clipboard was gone, the smugness dulled. She even crossed the street to avoid walking in front of our house. Emily finally slept through the night that weekend. Lily didn't, but hey, one win at a time. Of course, we weren't out of the woods. Because when people like Karen feel their grip slipping, they don't back down, they double down. And judging by the twitch in her eye the last time I caught her glaring from her window, I had a feeling she wasn't finished yet. But neither was I. She came at us with threats and fake policies and a clipboard full of nonsense. She thought we'd fold, panic, run. She didn't know who she was dealing with. I've faced down warlords, drug traffickers, and situations where one wrong step meant never coming home. Karen Whitmore, she was just another obstacle, and I'd already started planning how to take her down. Asterisk, you ever feel your blood go cold, but your brain stays ice clear? Like everything around you slows down, but you're moving with purpose. That's what kicked in once I realized Karen wasn't just annoying. She was dangerous. And I don't mean Karen's mad because your garbage can was on the curb 10 minutes early dangerous. I mean the kind of dangerous that makes you double-check your locks, change your routes, and sleep with a baseball bat by the door. But see, I'd been trained for this. Not this exactly. There was no HOA Karen unit in SEAL training, but for what to do when a situation starts to go sideways and the people in charge aren't doing a damn thing. I knew how to handle people like Karen. Calmly, quietly, efficiently. She thought she had control, but that was before I started digging. First thing I did was get organized. I built a war room. Okay, fine. It was a Google Drive folder labeled Karen Dossier, but still, it had everything. Timestamps, videos, scanned letters, even audio clips from her porch rants. I backed everything up twice and sent copies to my old Navy buddy Gabe, who now works IT security for a law firm in Atlanta. If anything happens to us, I told him, leak it to every news outlet you can think of. Done, he said. Also, your neighbor's a full-on psycho. He wasn't wrong. Karen's history, once I scratched the surface, read like the origin story of a Disney villain who never got a redemption arc. Turns out she'd been removed from a previous HOA board in Arizona for overstepping boundaries. Literally, she'd trespassed on a neighbor's property to trim their offensive hedges. She'd filed false reports on barking dogs, illegal flag sizes, and once tried to have a family fined because their teenager's car was too loud for the aesthetic. 3 separate families had moved because of her. I found this all through public records, a few spicy Reddit threads, and one blog post titled, "My HOA president tried to kidnap my cat." Spoiler, it was Karen. Same haircut, same clipboard. This wasn't her first rodeo, but it was going to be her last. Emily helped me reach out to neighbors. Quiet conversations over the fence. Casual stroller walks that turned into soap. Has Karen ever threatened you? Moments. Turns out, a lot of people had stories. One Gadave said she fined him $500 for aggressive landscaping. Another family got reported for improper seasonal decoration use because their Halloween skeleton had too much blood. I thought it was just me, one woman admitted, almost embarrassed. I didn't know she was like this with everyone. That was the thing. She operated like a Laurent mob boss, one victim at a time, slow enough that no one realized they weren't alone. So I started pulling everyone together. We met in my garage one evening, 6 of us total, seated in a half circle around a whiteboard. I'd dragged out of storage, like we were about to crack a murder case. Honestly, we kind of were. I laid it out, timelines, footage, reports, Karen's pattern, her escalation, her tactics, and then I asked the room one question: who's willing to put their name on a complaint? 5 hands went up. That's all I needed. The next step was legal. I filed for a restraining order. It wasn't just about the trespassing anymore. It was about safety. I had video evidence, neighbor witness statements, a literal log of her trying to take our baby. The judge didn't even blink. Signed it that day. Emily and I also wrote a formal statement to CPS, not just to report Karen's threat, but to make sure we were on record before she tried anything stupid. Turns out, they'd never received any official complaints about us. No open files. Visits. Nothing. So all those threats, pure fiction. Karen's version of truth was whatever suited her ego, but ours had receipts. Then I turned my attention to the board. Now, to be fair, most of the HOA board had no clue what Karen had been doing, like the rest of us. They assumed she was just a little over-enthusiastic. It wasn't until I showed them the video of her pounding on our door, demanding to inspect our baby for community compliance, that their jaws collectively hit the floor. This isn't part of any charter, the vice president said, blinking at the footage. No kidding, I said. But your president seems to think it is. The treasurer, a quiet woman named Linda, looked genuinely horrified. She said this was voted on, that we'd approved a health policy initiative. You didn't. She made it up. They promised to call an emergency meeting. Karen must have sensed it coming, because for the next 2 days she laid low. No notes, no pink paper, no early morning jogs past our house with her fake casual glances. It was almost peaceful. And then came the meeting, held in the local elementary school cafeteria, because nothing says official suburban justice like folding chairs and fluorescent lights. The board invited the community. I showed up early, folder in hand, neighbors in tow. Emily stayed home with Lily, but she watched the live stream someone's teenager was running on Instagram. Karen arrived late. She strutted in like she was walking into a courtroom drama, lips tight, eyes blazing. But that fire died fast when she saw what was waiting for her. 5 board members, a stack of evidence, and about 20 angry residents. It was quiet when I stood up. I didn't yell. I didn't rant. I just told the story. The whole thing. Direct, in full sentences. I showed footage, shared letters, read the part where Karen claimed my baby needed to be checked for public wellness. Then I showed the video from the porch, the one where she tried to open the door. Gasps. Real gasps. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." The board president looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Karen tried to speak, but this time, nobody gave her the floor. The vote was unanimous. Karen was removed as president, effective immediately. She stormed out, without a word. Clipboard clutched to her chest like it could protect her from reality. She never looked back. Outside, people clapped, literally clapped, like we'd just taken down a dictator in yoga pants. I shook hands, accepted a few thank yous, and headed home to Emily. We sat on the porch that night, Lily asleep in her crib, the cameras still humming quietly in the corners. You think she's done? Emily asked. She's lost her power, I said. She might stir up dust, but she's not in control anymore. Emily leaned into my shoulder. Good. I want to forget she ever existed. Same. But here's the thing about people like Karen. Even when they're gone, they leave a mess behind. And cleaning it up, that was going to be my next mission. Asterisk, the official letter came 3 days after the emergency vote. Printed on actual letterhead this time, not hot pink paper. Signed by every member of the HOA board. Sealed and stamped. Inside, just one clean paragraph. Karen Whitmore is hereby removed from her position as HOA president, effective immediately, due to multiple violations of community standards, harassment, and conduct unbecoming of a board member. I read it once, then twice. Then I laughed a short, quiet laugh that ended with a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for weeks. She was out, not just pushed aside or temporarily suspended. Out. No more clipboard, no more fake policies, no more surprise visits about baby compliance. Just silence, which, in a neighborhood like ours, suddenly felt like music. Karen didn't come outside much after that. Her front yard, once trimmed within an inch of its life, started to look shaggy. The tulips she used to brag about wilted. Her blinds stayed closed. You could feel it when you walked past her house. That thick, sour tension of someone who'd lost their spotlight and didn't know how to live without it. But losing her title wasn't enough. The restraining order was still in place, and thanks to the mountain of evidence I'd turned over, the city attorney didn't need much convincing to file harassment, trespassing, false claims to CPS. It wasn't just a slap on the wrist. Karen had crossed legal lines, and the justice system was finally catching up. She was served on a Tuesday. I watched from my kitchen window as the process server handed her the envelope. Karen took it with a stiff hand, lips pinched so tight they practically disappeared. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there for a long time afterward, holding that envelope like it might start burning if she let go. Several neighbors filed their own reports. Nothing huge, just enough to let the courts know this wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern. A long, ugly trail of intimidation, fines, and threats dressed up as neighborhood standards. The story picked up steam fast. Someone's still not sure who leaked the HOA meeting footage online. Within a day, it was on a local news blog. By the end of the week, a channel ran a full segment. HOA horror stories, when power goes too far. They blurred our faces and used different names, but the story was unmistakably ours. Jack the veteran, Emily, the new mom, the baby, the screaming neighbor demanding a wellness inspection. One of the board members, Linda, the treasurer, reached out after that. We owe you and your family an apology, she said. We should have seen it sooner. I didn't say much, just nodded and thanked her. Because honestly, what mattered most was that it was over. The board held another vote, this time to change the HOA charter. They passed reforms, real ones. Limits on presidential authority, transparency requirements, and my personal favorite ATA clause that forbids any future board member from initiating contact with a resident's child for any reason. They called it the Lily Clause. I framed the printout and hung it in the garage. Emily cried when she saw it. And after all that, after the months of stress and sleepless nights and staring out the window waiting for the next note, the next threat, the next insane roulette, finally got quiet. Not boring, quiet, peaceful, quiet. One Sunday morning, I sat in the backyard with Lily nestled in my lap. She was bigger now, still small, but growing fast. She had Emily's eyes and a stubborn little frown that I knew was mine. She looked up at the sky, fascinated by the way the leaves moved in the wind. Emily came out with 2 mugs of coffee, sat next to me, and tucked her head on my shoulder. "You think she'll leave?" she asked softly. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe she'll just stay inside and stew. I kind of hope she leaves. I kind of hope she stays." Emily looked at me sideways. "Why?" I smiled. "Because now she knows we're not afraid of her, and neither is anyone else." She didn't answer. She just nodded and leaned in closer. "There's something about a quiet backyard, about birds you can actually hear, and sunlight on grass, and the soft breathing of your child asleep in your arms. It's the kind of thing I used to dream about in places halfway across the world, where quiet meant danger and shadows meant someone was watching. I came home to find peace, and I did, eventually. But here's the thing. I learned peace isn't given, it's claimed, protected, fought for, because the world's full of people like Karen, people who think authority is a weapon, people who confuse control with order, people who smile while they strip you of your rights, one fake rule at a time. They count on you being too polite, too scared, too tired to fight back. But when you come for my family, when you knock on my door and try to take what's mine, you don't get a warning, you get war. And I know how to win that. Always have."